welcome back to our first OM3 Things of the new season. Our newest colleague, Mr. Joakim Noah. How are you, sir? Live from Miami, Florida. What's going on, man?
I mean, newborn in the house, didn't sleep much, but still ready to talk about my NBA points,
What are your last couple of weeks been like?
Honestly, it's been great. I've had kids before, but when you have them, when you're playing in the NBA, you have to worry about games and you're out on the road a lot. When you're retired, you have to do some of the work at home. So I've been up at night and helping out. Obviously, I can't feed my kid. I can't give him the boob, but it's all about just where I can make myself useful.
We should give a little context, and I think as we do these, so for some background for the audience, we're going to be doing these every Monday. Generally, in the morning, our goal is to really react to what happened in the NBA over the weekend, and we're going to do some of them remote, some of them in person. Joe has an insane, I would call it a compound, in South Florida in Miami, a beautiful place, one of the really just the coolest houses I've ever been to. Do you want to, at a certain point, we're going to show this off, but do you want to just kind of like give the audience even a little background of how you ended up in Miami, why you're here? I know you're in Chicago a lot, obviously, because of your relationship with the team. But just like what your day-to-day has been looking like.
Look, for me personally, I'm really happy to be down here in Miami. And I think for me, it was the first thing I did when I bought my house is I wanted to grow some trees, plant some trees, and, just have my kids understand that lemons and oranges and star fruits don't come from the supermarket. So I wanted to plant trees, and now we're picking fruits with my kids. And it's something that I'm really proud about. I put a lot of time in my garden, and I'm just really enjoying, picking fruits.
We will show all this off for sure. I know we were talking about this last night about the Cavs. I want to get into some of the NBA stuff.
Yeah.
They are now 15-0. They're the first team since Golden State in 2016 to start this hot. Golden State started 24-0. What were your initial thoughts? I guess what were your thoughts on them going into the year? And then where are you looking at them right now?
Well, I wasn't expecting 15-0, but it actually makes a lot of sense. They changed their coach, Kenny Atkinson, somebody very special. I've known him for 20 years. I remember when I was still at University of Florida, I remember going to Paris to see my family, and he was an assistant coach for Paris Saint-Germain. And I just remember those training sessions. We would do full court drills with him doing the pick and rolls. So even in the conditioning drills at the end, he was doing them with me for like a month in the summer. It just shows what kind of guy he is. And you can just see it in the practice. This guy is really involved. He's not just taking a step back and letting his assistants do it. So big shout out to Kenny, and somebody also who was with Golden State, somebody who understands the system. And you have guys who are battle tested. They played in some big games last year. They won a playoff series. When you look at Garland and what he's doing, he's one of the shiftiest guys, and somebody, I don't know, I think he was probably hurt a little bit last year, and to be healthy and I just feel like the decisions are really quick. They're playing at a high level. Big shout out to Ty Jerome as well, who is somebody who's dealt with a lot of injuries, who looks like he's just enjoying playing at a high level. And you could just tell that team is really clicking.
We should shout out Ty. He obviously had to start last night because Donovan wasn't playing. Ty right now is leading the team in basically every advanced stat, player efficiency, player impact, everything like that. I wanted to go back to the Kenny point for a second. When he was in Brooklyn, he obviously he had a very up and down time there based off just having the team with the really high morale, and then all of a sudden all the stars come in and the dynamic changes. But we've had guys on the show, at various points. We're going to do some stuff with Jared Allen, who's obviously in Cleveland now, who was on that team with him in Brooklyn. And he just raved about the culture that he built there and the impact he had in the locker room itself. And I was curious, you're not in the locker room with these guys right now, so some of this is obviously a guess, but this was a team that was a second round exit last year, and they really had like their struggles. they won a playoff series, but it was a bear to get there. It was a bear to get to the second round, and now they just look happy and they just look like sort of fun and free flowing. And I'm wondering, from your experience with Kenny in particular, how much of that is also just off the court, how he is as a leader and as a coach.
I think it's all connected. First you got to give Bickerstaff his flowers because he helped grow that situation, and now you bring in Kenny, who's definitely a personality who can talk about winning championships because he's been there. I think that's it's a beautiful thing to see Kenny really do his thing, and let's not forget this kid Mobley is balling. What they're doing, what they're first in offensive rating right now. And I just think that Mobley also ending the games at the 5 sometimes. It's just a very versatile team, and a team that you can just tell the decisions are just quick. It's not somebody holding the ball and everybody just watching. They can start with 2 bigs with Allen and Mobley. And a lot of people say, well, that's kind of old school. We don't really see that. But, those are 2 guys that can really move their feet. It's still tough to score over those two 7-footers.
Yeah, I was going to ask about those 2 in particular, because it feels like them leaning into Mobley and Allen is sort of going away from where the rest of the league is going to a certain extent. And so, what do you think it is about those 2 guys, just with their you mentioned the footwork, but just their builds overall, that allows them to sort of differentiate themselves from where the rest of the league seems to be heading?
Well, I think that first, I think that when you think about a team that's 15-0, you realize really quickly, okay, we're building something special. I think that everybody should be feeling really good about themselves, and sacrifices must be made. Some games, Allen was an all-star player, but he's somebody who might not end the games now because that's the sacrifice he's got to make, because Mobley has to play the 5 and they have to stretch out the court. So I think that everybody's putting their egos to the side. I see Mitchell doing things like making quick decisions. If he doesn't have an advantage, I think he's passing it to Garland. I think that they figured out their chemistry piece, and they have a leader who has no problem, putting those guys in check. I think that I had a similar situation, when we played our first playoff series with Boston. It was Vinny Del Negro was our coach. We lose in the first round to Boston, which was a great series. But now we brought in somebody who had won a championship, and Tom Thibodeau as an assistant comes in, and he took our team to a whole new level. So I think that something similar is happening right now in Cleveland.
Darius Garland, you mentioned before, he's shooting 80%, 79%, 80% on floaters this year, which is pretty nuts. Ty also is shooting a really high percentage there. I wanted to ask about that shot in particular, even just from your perspective, having to defend it. You didn't have to defend it with Darius, but having to can you kind of just walk the audience through how hard it is to shoot that percentage on a shot like that? And then also even just approaching that defensively, because it does feel like it from a timing standpoint, it's basically, when it's on, it feels like it's almost impossible to defend.
Well, the floater is definitely a tough shot off the pick and roll. If you have a guard shooting that percentage off a floater, that's a really good sign for your team. I think that when I think of Garland, who had a great floater at our time, I would think of a guy like Tony Parker, and what that floater shot helped San Antonio do back in the days. So a lot of their championship is due to that floater shot and Tony Parker making that shot.
Speaking of championships, we wanted to hit the Warriors for a minute. The Warriors are currently 10-2, 4th in offensive rating, 4th defensive rating, 3rd in net. They're 10-2 with Steph missing 3 games. We wanted to shout out, both your boy Mike Dunleavy for putting this roster together, and Jerry Stackhouse on the bench. I wanted your initial thoughts on where they are as a team, and then also just on the depth and the pieces that they've added this offseason, because like we just mentioned, Steph not playing, they didn't miss a beat.
That's right. Well, let's start. I'll start by saying Mike Dunleavy was one of my favorite teammates on Chicago. He was one of the top system players I've ever played against. Great. He wasn't somebody who was great one-on-one defender, but he was a great system defender. So I think he understands who he was as a player. And I think it's a perfect position for, as somebody as a general manager now for the Golden State Warriors, he understands that those pieces, those system pieces was going to take them to the next level. The fact that they're a top 5 offense, top 5 defense, I mean, I know it's early in the season, but they're a contender. And they're a contender, and they're playing like high-level basketball. And obviously, everything their team runs around Draymond and Steph. But those pieces that they added on, I shout out to Slow Mo, big piece, and all those guards coming. All those guys are just like playing high level with an intensity that you need to do especially when you're playing in a system like that.
They right now they have the second best bench net rating in the league. They're averaging 58 points per game on their bench, which would be the most in NBA history. Added Buddy Hield, shooting 47% from 3 this year. Added Kyle Anderson, which was a great pickup, and then obviously getting Wiggins back in the starts and getting Gary Payton Jr. back, Gary Payton third back. When you look at the rotations for teams like this, and obviously it's November, so it's early, and you're trying things out. From your perspective, just being around a lot of these groups, how do you juggle the we got 12 guys who can play versus we need to make sure that we're locked in with this is our rotation, this is our unit, this is who, and so does this feel like does it feel like it more important to kind of use this time of the year as a testing ground, or more like we almost can overwhelm you with our depth and take advantage of the fact that, they're playing teams that are going 6-7 deep and they're running basically 12 deep with guys that all can contribute?
Yeah. Well, I think if you can play 12 and everybody's locked in and okay with their roles, I think that's definitely a plus. You're playing seven guys. This is you have to stay healthy. You have to stay sustainable as much as possible. And I really feel like Golden State has the players. You think that the 11th and 12th guys aren't playing a lot of minutes. So I want to give a big shout out to a guy like Jerry Stackhouse, who was definitely one of my favorite coaches. I got to play with him. He was my coach at Memphis for a year. And, I was a backup, and there were times where I was playing 11, 12 minutes in a game. And, it's not a great feeling. But I remember Stack, before practices, he always thought that he was better than the players, even as a coach. So he was somebody who would say, check up. I'll bust your ass right now. And you would come in, and right away he would kind of just get you out of that mindset of it's about me. I only played 10 minutes last night, and just help you enjoy the competitive spirit. So playing one-on-one against Stack was one of my highlights. I loved him as a coach, and he was somebody, he didn't have a problem telling you exactly how it was. So seeing Stackhouse over there, I think, is a huge addition. And he's somebody who's not going to back down from anybody. If you're about the wrong shit, he's going to let you know. He's going to make you really feel it. And we all know who Jerry Stackhouse is. He has no problem.
How common is that? How common is the assistant coach who still thinks they're better than all the players?
Well, I'm sure a lot of them do, but a lot of them won't check up.
They don't say it. They don't say it.
Check up one-on-one is a whole other level. And I think that Stack has no problem telling it how it is, and if you're out of bounds with it, he's gonna make you really feel it. So yeah. I respect Stack a lot.
With this team, I mean, with Steph, we talk about Steph every episode. It's there's only so much you can say, but I wanted to get your perspective, I guess on the impact of Steph on somebody like Buddy. He's had a great career, but he's one of the great, three-point shooters in recent NBA history. But like I said before, he's averaging 18 a game, 47 from 3, 50 from the field overall. And I'm kind of I'm just curious about the gravity that Steph provides for somebody like that, basically. And even your perspective, approaching defending Steph and defending the shooters around Steph and all the guys who've had great, shooting careers, in part because they're playing with somebody like this, and just that overall impact.
For me, I think that Steph is a guy, Tommy, even if you were on the Golden State Warriors, I feel like you would be more confident, playing with a guy like Steph Curry. And
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I think that he's
Just give
also
it to you.
somebody. I mean, I think that Steph is somebody who obviously, playing with him, you definitely get your confidence. And a guy like Buddy gets to see, the greatest shooter of all time prepare every day. So I think that if I'm Buddy Hield, I'm just watching his preparation, how he gets ready for games. And I think he can mimic as much as possible because he is a great shooter himself. And you can just tell he's came into the season with a lot of confidence. And you can tell that Steph Curry's attributes and preparation has definitely helped him in this early season.
Did you have when you were when this Warriors team with Steph was developing and you're sort of seeing it in real time. At what point were you just as a competitor and as a rival, but also somebody who's following the league that's happening in real time? At what point did you start to understand just how special this was?
Well, I think the most interesting thing about their run is in the beginning of Steph's career, he was getting hurt a lot. He had real bad ankle injuries. So he signs a deal for peanuts. I mean, not peanuts, but a lot less than he would be worth. And it allowed them to sign all the guys. And their team got a lot stronger. And that's how the Golden State Warriors really started. I thought they were good. I didn't know they would be that great. It wasn't until Draymond came that things like really, really changed. So the intangibles that Draymond brings to that team allows Steph to be Steph. Like nobody is punking Steph Curry. Like nobody was punking Clay because of
Yeah.
Draymond Green.
Well, remember they almost traded Clay for K Love. There's so many what ifs with that team that allowed them sort of to get to this place. But with that, with Draymond in particular, that is like you've had to be in that a similar role, on multiple teams over the course of your career in terms of just like doing everything, being a Swiss Army knife, providing all those intangibles. Is that something? Have you ever talked about that with him or no? Because I feel like there's a world where he's learned some of that from you, in terms of just what he does, but just like almost talk about how he's able to kind of keep the ship afloat, on both. And people don't give him enough credit for the table setting offensively. I think everyone knows defensively at this point, but offensively, he's doing the same thing. He's finding all the cutters, he's finding all the shooters,
Well,
and
I think where Draymond is very special, especially on the offensive end, is Steph is he's so great that you have to put two on him. You're double teaming him. So Draymond ends up playing in space and having to make it's a 4-on-3, four offensive players versus three, and he's great at making those reads. You blitz, you try to get the ball out of Steph's hand. It's like pick your poison because Draymond is great at and playing in that space and making a play. That's rare for a big to be able to have that kind of skill set, and you don't really see that in a stat sheet.
and that's just instinct, right?
It's
Like you
instinct,
can't
but
teach that.
well, I mean, I think it's something that you can work on in practice as well. Putting yourself in positions where you're blitzing Steph and you're getting the ball out of his hands, and then you make decisions. I think he was always really good at that. I remember Draymond playing his rookie year, and we were blitzing Steph, and he ended up hitting 7 or 8 threes that game. I was sick. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. But obviously, we were like, okay, let's get the ball out of Steph's hands. We're going to blitz him and make Draymond make a play, and he killed us by himself.
The last topic I think we wanted to make sure we hit for sort of obvious reasons in the first one of these that we're doing is the French invasion, which you were one of the godfathers of, I would say. But the French invasion in the NBA, in particular, we wanted to shout out, Wemby, of course, and then also Bilal. But I want to talk about Wemby first. Wemby among sophomores, first in points, rebounds, blocks, and three-pointers made, fifth in assists, third in steals. Another crazy stat, 48 blocks on the year. The rest of his team only has 44. You know him well. You've known him for, a lot of his life. Just your overall thoughts right now, where he is, everything on the court and off the court.
I mean, it's just somebody, when I think of Wemby, just obviously the sky's the limit. We haven't seen anything like that, just that size with that kind of mobility. Usually when you think of 7 foot guys, you think of bigs with a pulse who can barely run up and down the court. This guy's shooting step backs. He's shooting one-legged threes. He's he's so far away from the defender when they're taking their shots. And I'm seeing plays where it's like 3-on-1, he's back on defense, and guys won't even go up for layups around him. It's just beautiful to see, and like imagine what this is going to look like when it's prime time. He's still a kid, and just very smart, high IQ. And what I love about Wemby is he played in a huge game this summer. I mean, being from France, playing in the Olympics final against the USA, where the world is watching. They lose the game. Wemby played well, but like these are games that are a part of his DNA now. And you can tell it's a huge reflection on the way he's starting the season right now. And I think that he still has a ways to go, but I think that he's hungry, and it's just so fun to watch his progression.
Besides the obvious with him, what do you think his best skill is defensively?
I think his best skill is just his intelligence. I think that he's somebody who, obviously at 7'4", being able to, I think you can't take away the fact that he's 7'4". He can jump to the sky. He can jump to the moon. He's a hell of a player. His mobility, you can't teach those things. But then you add in his IQ, him going to sleep early, reading books, all those things that we learn about him. Also having the ability to, I was blessed to meet his family, and big shout out to his mom and his pops as well for raising just like a good human. He's solid all around. And I think defensively, obviously, like when you think you have an open three and Wemby's around, you might think you're open, you're not open.
He really is locked in. I mean, he does the 8 o'clock thing isn't a joke. Like, we know him. Obviously, we've done episodes with him in the past, and been lucky to meet his family and know the team around him and everything like that. He is, it's very rare for somebody that age to be this on it. It feels like, physical skills and gifts aside.
He's on it. He's serene. I just love everything about him. He's must-watch TV. The Spurs play, even though their record is not great. Like I got my popcorn ready. I'm excited to watch this guy play. And I think Chris Paul was a great addition. Puts him in a great position to win. And we'll see. I think they still definitely need to get a few extra players, but.
Offensively, we just went over the numbers. He's obviously a great shooter. Is there any part of his game offensively that you want to see, adapt a little bit more in the paint, even table setting, with what we were talking about with Draymond?
Yeah, I think that he can definitely, table setting, I think is important. It's a little bit different because he's the primary scorer for that team already. People will say that he shouldn't shoot so many threes. His shot looks beautiful. I'm not telling that guy anything that could impede his confidence. I mean, let him shoot, let him do his thing. Obviously, I think as he gets stronger, I think he'll build a relationship with I can put these little guys in the hole. Like right now, I think that he's not there yet physically, but I think all that's the next part of his game, that once he figures that out, I think that's where you're going to see, like, he's already dominating and he already has all the hard things figured out. Now it's on him to figure out, okay, this is who's guarding me. I'm going to put that little boy in the rim. And then when that happens, it's a wrap.
We have to mention his high school teammate and friend growing up, who we've talked about a ton. We talked about with Matt, or boy Matt, a ton. Bilal Coulibaly, really one of the sort of breakout young stars in the league this year. It took him a little while last year to get everything figured out. His shooting is up. He's shooting 54% now compared to 42% last year. His three-point shooting is way up. Defensively, his stocks are way up. Have you known him for as long as you've known Vic?
Yes. I mean, the first time I saw Wemby was the year before he came into the NBA. So the team that I grew up playing with as a kid was the professional team that Bilal and Wemby played for in Levallois in Paris. So I remember being a kid and like walking to that practice facility and then being able to see Bilal and Wemby, play on the professional team right down the street from where I grew up as a kid is really special. Obviously, Bilal and Wemby, grew up together playing basketball, like playing in France, and now having that relationship of playing for the French national team and now playing in the NBA. I mean, I think that Bilal is somebody who's always going to be a little bit overlooked because of Wemby, but they're somebody that they're a combo that are definitely close, and he's definitely a do-it-all guard. So I think that the sky's the limit when you think of Bilal and Wemby playing together. You also have Sarr on Washington. You think of Reza Shea in Atlanta. I mean, there's a lot of French players right now that are making some noise. I love Reza Shea. Reza Shea's pops was one of my heroes growing up, real French legend. I remember he had big dreads out there shooting threes, doing his thing. And now to see his son in the NBA, I was worried about the expectations of the number one pick. I mean, somebody that definitely has a gray head on his shoulders and somebody who's figuring it out on a tough Atlanta team. Let's not forget that these are all players. These guys are kids, but these are kids who have been professionals for a long time, who understand what it means to be a professional. And when you have that mindset, especially that young, I mean, that's just a recipe for progress.
Yeah, we should acknowledge with Risa Sage too. Playing with Dyson Daniels, playing with Jalen Johnson, playing with those other young wings, and being able to basically grow together has got to be so beneficial. Where you have these guys who are, to your point, are on the same timeline. From your perspective, with these, take Wemby out of it because it's a little bit of a different situation with him. If you're a guy like Bilal, and we're going to do a bunch of stuff with Bilal on this show, so we'll get to talk about it with him, directly in person. But when you're on a team that's not great, and you're figuring it out, and you basically, I thought what you just said about Wemby was so interesting about just like, you just got to keep his confidence up. And more than anything else, it's like the talent is clearly there. Everything else is going to fall into place, but it's keeping the confidence up. But if you're on a team that isn't winning, and you have not been on very many teams like this throughout your life, but you have, at various points, and you've seen it, you've just known guys who've been in the spot that isn't winning. How do you do that? How do you force yourself into keeping your confidence up and knowing you're basically like progressing in the right way if it's a situation that, is probably not optimal?
That's a great question. Being on losing teams it's as tough as it gets, especially as a competitor. You want to win, but you have to, professionalism when you're on a losing team is another level. When you're winning, it's a lot easier to go to the weight room. It's a lot easier to go as hard as you can in practice. When you're on a 5-game losing streak, 8-game losing streak, it takes a toll on you mentally. And you have to figure out, you have to really dig deep and bring it. A lot of people think that that's easy. No, it's as tough as it gets. And also the conversations in the locker room when you're losing, it's not the same thing as when you have real aspirations of playing in the playoffs and maybe even winning a championship. So I think to me, that is something that's very interesting. Who's the leadership? Who are the veterans on a team that are making sure that the conversations are about the right thing and not about contracts and stats, but about winning. And I think that's definitely a common thing that players understand. But overall, I think that all those French guys right now have a level of professionalism that can help them get to the next level. Like I would say personally for me, my career changed when I played in that Boston series my second year because the conversations were different. It wasn't about a contract. It wasn't about how many points somebody scored or rookie of the stats or awards or anything like that. Once I hit the playoffs, I was like, oh, okay. My workouts were 10 times better in the summer because I knew what to expect. This playoff thing is what it's all about. And playing in those playoff games has nothing to do with money.
And that's also the value of vets. We always talk about this, but that's the value of having guys in your ear. Like you just mentioned CP with Vic. I mean, CP's seen everything there is to see in basketball. So there's nothing he's going to be surprised by.
That's right.
You know, at a certain
and has an IQ that I think that it could make sense for Wemby as well. I could see those two being close and having those conversations.
One before we go, one other guy that we wanted to shout out, not French, but spent a lot of time growing up in Belgium, is Yves Missi from the New Orleans Pelicans. They've had insane injuries, probably not the start that they would have wanted, but I feel like, you know, one of their bright spots and really one of the rookie bright spots around the league has been him. What have you seen from him?
Honestly, I love watching Yves Missi play, man. He is so special. Just the way his bounce, he's not afraid to go after anybody who tries to dunk the ball. He's punching shots. He runs the floor like a deer. And just big shout out to him. I was doing a panel during UN week talking about trying to bring investment into Africa. And he was sitting front row, just special, really, really special kid. I got to chop it up with him a little bit. And it's just so beautiful to see the growth of basketball in Cameroon. Obviously, you know, my father's from Cameroon, and you know, a lot of my family roots are from there. So I always pay attention to the Cameroon guys. It's so beautiful to see a young guy like Yves Missi doing his thing and getting an opportunity. But you think of also Ulrich, who's at the NBA Academy, who's from Cameroon. You have Pascal Siakam, who's from Cameroon. You have Joel Embiid, who's from Cameroon. We have 4 Cameroonian basketball players, and we have 1 indoor basketball court in the whole country. I mean, I built 2 basketball courts in Cameroon. We had 700 kids. Like what Yves Missi and Ulrich and Pascal, there is such an excitement around basketball in this country. This is a country with 25 million people. We have 4 NBA stars. It's just
that's an insane stat.
That's an insane stat.
This is the work. I mean, we're going to talk about it a lot over the course of the show, but this is the work that you guys are doing. Is to change. Someone's got to change it, you know, because it's not like if it's not you, you know, no one's going to do it. So it's like somebody has to go change this. But I think when you put it in perspective like that, and then also, I mean, not that this should matter too much, but these are great players. You're talking about these are the, you know, this is an MVP. This is a champion in Pascal. This is not just, you know, guys who've been in the league for 6 weeks. Like these are truly great NBA players. And, you know, and I think that this is a tribute, I think, to a lot of the, you know, work that you guys are doing to try to change this.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
I feel like that's a good place to close this. This was the first of the welcome to the team moment.
Thanks, man.
For Mr. Joe. You're going to be seeing him every Monday. And then I think as we get going a little bit and he gets the green light on the family side, I think we're going to be trying some other stuff as well. And so, you know, you'll be seeing him on the channel a lot. You're not going to get sick of him. You might get sick of me. I might bounce. You'll be seeing him all over the place. All right, man.
Respect, bro.
Later.
Peace.